Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday. We are getting close to spring ball. There is chaos at Georgia and Notre Dame. We have a lot of recruiting buzz happening now. A lot of kids scheduling visits for Ohio State, both unofficial and official, and a lot of great stuff going on. And I went to my first 7-on-7 tournament ever, and it was fantastic. So we're going to talk about all of that. So get your questions fired up. Get ready to rock with the bank and I. But as always, very thankful for you guys. Grateful for you guys. As always, click like, subscribe, get that little alert bell if you enjoy our live content. We have been bringing it every night, and it has been a blast. And we've got some really good video to break down tonight. And the bank is going to take your questions. That being said, I am going to bring in my man who's a veteran of many 7-on-7 tournaments, Bill the Bank Greene. Bank, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Doing real good.
So, Bank, I know that you have been doing the 7-on-7 thing for a long time, probably 15, 20 years or so. So yeah. What I experienced in Naples with like the white gloves and the not quite as rambunctious as some parts of Miami and some of the 7-on-7s you've been to, describe the scene of 7-on-7 and how you've seen it explode over the last 15 years. Because I personally loved it. I saw all of our South Florida Express buddies, Ricky, Brett Getz, the whole crew. Talk a little bit about, what it does for you from an evaluation standpoint and what do you get out of watching those?
Well, yeah, I mean, the best thing about it is the best on best you see with the wide receivers going against the DBs. And you can really evaluate DBs in terms of being their man cover skills, because there's just nowhere to hide out there. A couple weeks ago, I saw KJ Bolden, who's a safety, but I saw him locked up one-on-one with some really good wide receivers, and he was able to flip his hips, and, he had the speed to run with people, good instincts, could stick his foot in the ground, change direction. I love seeing that out of him, as opposed to a thick-hipped kid that, and like I said, there's nowhere to hide out there. It's a lot of man coverage, and you either can do it or you can't. And also with the wideouts, who can separate, who can get open, and who can't, and so it's the best skill set that you're going to have to figure out who can cover as DBs and who can get open as wide receivers. It's no different than what Ohio State does at their camps. It's what they do with their DBs and their wide receivers come to camp. Same thing. Quarterbacks can't, there's no rush. You're not getting hit in the chest. So it's harder to evaluate the quarterbacks. What you can evaluate is decision making, because you've got to make a quick decision in a short period of time, and you can determine arm strength. You can either zing it or you can't. And again, something like that, nowhere to hide. It's not like watching film on a kid where sometimes, can he rip it? Can he not rip it? Well, in 7-on-7, you're standing 5 feet away from the kid. He either can zing it or he can't. So there's a lot to be learned there with the skill kids. And it's grown so much in popularity that, I saw a tournament a couple of weeks ago, down in Miami, and team from Arizona won it. There was a team from Texas, Georgia, they were everywhere. They come to play in those things, so the people that are behind it, the coaches and stuff, they have got to raise a crap load of money just to be in the game of this stuff, unless you want to stay local. Someone like South Florida Express, they go to LA, they go to Vegas, they go everywhere, Texas, there's a big time tournament, they're going to go. So it has grown so much from the first time I saw 7-on-7. My first 7-on-7, there's guys that played in that are now ready to retire from the NFL. Geno Smith was in one of my first groups of 7-on-7s I ever saw, and Geno is a multi-year veteran in the NFL right now. So, but it's huge. It's great for evaluating those skill kids. And, everybody does it. If you go to a Georgia June, everybody does it. If you go to a Georgia June camp or Ohio State or Bama, they're going to run. You're going to have 7-on-7, and we're going to find out who can cover and who can get open.
How much better is it when you go to one of the big 7-on-7 events, like say in Miami? I know South Florida Express, they're going to go to New Orleans, Austin, Vegas, California. How good is it for an eval? Because I feel like that the talent, especially if you go somewhere like Miami, which is close proximity to, half the best players in the country, and a lot of kids flew in for that from all over the country. How great is that as opposed to going to like an Ohio State camp where, on that same given day, there's a camp at Georgia, there's a camp at Florida, there's a camp at Miami, like where this 7-on-7, when it's one of these big 7-on-7s, I mean, they're all at that 7-on-7 because there's not as much of a scheduling conflict compared to like saying, well, this 5 stars at Georgia and this 5 stars at Texas. And how beneficial is that for you? Because that's what I'm like you. I love getting evals of great on great, like JJ Smith versus, some of these top notch corners, Cromani, some of these guys, like, because then you really get to see, one, are kids scared? One, are they competitive? And how do they react when they get beat? Because some of these guys, when they're in high school, they never get beat because they never, like, I watched Anthony Cook 5-6 years ago in Houston, and he didn't see a single ball thrown his way. He played corner, and I was like, I don't know if he's good. I think he's good. He looks great, but he ends up not catching. He doesn't even get a target his way. So, what does that do for your ability to evaluate and kind of see what a kid's makeup is?
Yeah, a good example of that would be Cormani McClain from last year, rated as probably, I think he ended up being ranked the #1 DB in America. And the thing is, you could see from 7-on-7, you could see the good and the bad. The good was the guy's like 6'2", legit 6'2", with arms of someone that's like 6'5", and he can flip his hips. He's really quick for that size, He's physical, kind of a Richard Sherman type guy, potentially. But again, you have to use potentially. He's not ready right now. He got beat a lot when I saw him in 7-on-7. Didn't bother me because he needs coached, #1, needs to mature a little bit, #2. So when I see Cormani go to Colorado, I'm thinking he's going to get coached by Dion every single day. So that's going to be amazing for that kid. Where some people might think, well, he went to Colorado for NIL money or, glitz and glamour. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as a kid that's going to be coached by the very best every day. And that's what he needs. He is absolutely not ready to step out there right now as a freshman, and cover Pac-12 receivers. He's just not. In 2 years, he's probably going to be an All-American, and in 3 years, he could be headed to the NFL. But that's what you see in 7-on-7. You can see someone, and you can really tell, like, he's going to be great someday, but he's not great right now. And that's why I liked it. And Cormani is the perfect example of that, in that he may not be ready today, but boy, you give him a year or two, and he figures it out with all of his God-given abilities, then it's over. So that's what it helped. And then you'll see someone like JJ Smith, who's 16 years old. He's ready right now. He would have been in the rotation at Ohio. I think he'd have been in the rotation this year. He definitely would be next year, and he's going to start as a true freshman at Ohio State. I mean, he is so developed physically that, you'd never think that he was just a high school junior. If someone said, well, this guy, he starts at UCF or, he's started for the last 2 years, you'd believe it when you look at him. I mean, he looks like a man. So those are the things that you learn there. I mean, when you watch him, it's just so much more beneficial than just watching tape, I think. I think both are important.
Yeah, I agree. Like, for a kid like JJ, I spent a lot of time with JJ on Saturday and with his dad. I mean, great people, really like just above and beyond the maturity level that I expected from any kid of his age, because he's all business. Like, I mean, he is like just all business, no goofing around. I don't even know if he smiled the whole time. Like, he literally he's like the Terminator out there, and that's fantastic. And I interviewed him afterwards, and he was really a great kid. He's really conscientious, about his books. He's like what do you want to tell Ohio State fans? Well, I'm going to get great grades and I'm going to work really hard for you. And I was like, wow, that's about as good of an answer as you could ever give. Dad was great, real faith-based family. Like I really, really liked getting to know JJ. I think that the one thing about 7-on-7 is when you're a guy like Cormani or a guy like JJ and you're like a 5-star kind of spotlight kind of guy, is it gets you ready for the fact that everyone is going to be gunning for you. Because, when you have SFE on your chest, it's like being Georgia football. It's like you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're Godzilla. And, and those teams that were getting ready to play SFE, their intensity was about 10x what it was when they were going up against anybody else, because that's the team you want to beat. You beat SFE, it's like beating the 96 Bulls. And, and I think that some of their games, their guys are sleepwalking. They didn't match the intensity, and games were closer than they needed to be, or, they even lost a game. And that's something that these kids got to get used to, especially when you go to Georgia, you go to Ohio State, you go to Bama. Every week when you're playing Vandy or Florida or Indiana, those teams are going to play out of their mind, because those guys, there's a couple of guys on that team that are probably going to get drafted, and they know if they show out against Ohio State, that's the game that the scouts are going to watch. So, I think that's a good preparation thing for SFE. And honestly, the coaching is really intense. And there are some guys like Samari Roll who played in the league for like 12 years, and it's not, hey, glad you're here on Saturday and here's your cookies and here's your milk. It's like, no, it is like in your face, intense. And again, it is really good coach. I mean, a lot of NFL guys on that sideline that are helping out coaching. And, I think that's really good. I think that these guys learn how to take coaching and take hard criticism, because those SFE guys, man, they do not mince words. It is, very cut. It's very cut and dry. And I think that's good. I think that kids need honest, direct, critical, evaluation of their play. And that's something that I loved seeing it. Like I said, I think it's 7-on-7 is something that it's a huge deficit for Ohio that we don't have it, because I'm sitting down here thinking that these kids in the South are getting real, live, intense reps versus other kids versus other programs. And kids in Ohio are just sitting at home playing Call of Duty, where these kids are out grinding for 6 hours. And you can't really replace that by just going to a training center and catching balls without someone covering you.
Plus, they have spring football too. So you have 4 weeks of spring football times 4 years in high school. That's an extra 16 weeks of intense football, plus 7-on-7. So, I mean, when I first started watching South Florida Express, the defensive back coaches were Patrick Surtain and Sam Madison. The wide receiver coach was Kevin Beard. These guys they're all, big time. Now Sam Madison's coaching for the Chiefs, I think, right now, or he's somewhere right now. Mm-hmm. Kevin Beard was at Toledo. I mean, coaching wide receivers. Surtain, big time high school coach. I mean, so this is not a hobby for these. It's more than just a hobby. Like you said, they're not there goofing off or feeling like, oh, I'm giving back to the community or what. They don't have that kind of attitude. I mean, they're coaching those kids hard, and they're getting NFL type coaching. We don't have that in Ohio. We don't have spring football in Ohio. Look at all the extra football these kids get. And how do you get better at football? It's by playing football. You know what I mean? You can shoot hoops in the backyard and really develop as a shooter. But what do you do in your backyard to get better as a football player? It's hard. I mean, it's so much harder for these Ohio kids. Bigger hurdles to become a great player. It's a lot easier, in states that have 7-on-7 and spring football. It's an advantage.
Oh, it's massive advantage. Like when you got to ride that bus from Miami to Naples and you got to do that 7-on-7 tournament, and these kids are coming to eat your lunch if you don't show up. I mean, you gotta lock in. It's a lot different than running routes in the backyard or whatever. Like football is a unique sport because you need an organized, competitive environment to really get good at it. Like basketball, like you said, you can go shoot hoops in the driveway. You can go hit baseballs in the batting cage. But like football, man, like you got to get those live reps, and unless it's in a competitive environment where they're keeping score, it's hard to match that same intensity that you get in like an environment like you did. And it was a great tournament. It was a great exposure. I appreciate you for that, Bank. Couple SFE guys. Obviously, we talk about JJ Smith and JoJo Trader about as much as anybody. We talked about JJ already. JoJo was baby Ed Reed, basically. They put him back at safety when it got leaky, and he almost always, he probably had 7 interceptions in the one day. And I was like, it was like he was paying the quarterback to throw him the ball, but he would just track it, grab it, and go. And I was like, and it's a short field. It's a 40-yard field. So this isn't like he's running under a 70-yard bomb and he's just tracking it and grabbing it. Like, I mean, you got to break quick and pluck the ball. Do you think JoJo's best position is corner?
I think it's a corner. Yeah, I really do. Although as a, in the old, I could see him playing like free safety. I mean, he would be amazing in the old Jeff Halfley single high safety look, I mean, I saw Jordan Fuller as a high school kid, and he was good. He didn't have JoJo Trader's attributes in terms of 40-yard dash, vertical leap, shuttle time. JoJo Trader would blow Jordan Fuller away. Now, Jordan Fuller is smart as heck. And, I mean, a very good athlete. JoJo's an elite athlete. So when the mental part of the game gets to where Jordan Fuller's is, then you've got a potential superstar in JoJo. I like him as a corner, but I could also see him as a single high safety. He thinks he's a wide out, and he's a darn good one. So we'll see where he ends up. I just think he's a multimillionaire first-round draft pick as a DB, and then as a wide out, I think he's going to be a number 2 or number 3 guy if he goes to a big-time program. Goes to Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. He's a number 2 or number 3 wideout.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you put him next to JJ, and he's number 2 to JJ, but you put him out at corner, man. I was like, oh my God, because some guys just have that knack for getting the ball. Like, it's not everybody, and I've seen guys that can't turn the ball over like him, but it was like in that short period of time, it was funny because I think it was Samara was like screaming at the one safety that he wasn't breaking on the ball. He wasn't breaking balls up. And they put JoJo in there. Like, it was tight. It was not cutting time. I want to say if the team scored, they won. And JoJo got the pick. Not only did he like get his hands on the ball, he took it and ended the game. And I was like, it was almost like it was a movie script. He was so good. But yeah, I love that kid. And he was a great kid to be around. But he just, those guys are all business. 2 kids that weren't there that are SFE kids, Charles Lester, Zabian Brown, got really good vibes about them with Ohio State. They're both going to be at their next tournament in New Orleans. Zabian, interestingly enough, went to Riverview High School, the home of Mark Pantoni, but he recently transferred to Venice. So we kind of lost some inside baseball. But how much does Ohio State need to attack that corner room? Because I just feel like that, after we talked to Darren Lee last night, and he talked about having Marshawn and Ward and guys that are like top 10 press man guys that are just like, they stick to these guys like glue, Pro Bowlers. How big of a year is this to go get some corners?
Well, it's huge, and I think they're off to a great start. And when you look back at last year, I mean, Denzel Burke really flashed early in his freshman year. It didn't finish his freshman year well. And then I didn't think he was all, I didn't know that he was that much better last year at all, if he was better at all. And then Cam Brown was a grinder, ex-wide receiver. Nobody's mistaken Cam Brown for Marshawn Lattimore. So they got to get better on the corner. No doubt about it. They're bringing the 2023 group I really like. And then 2024, you got the 2 Ohio kids, Scott and Bryce West. And I think they're going to get both of those kids. And then they just offered that kid from Arizona the other day, or they've offered him a long time ago, but now it looks like, they're honed in on him. He has set up an official visit. Miles Lockhart, to me, the other 2 guys are outside corners. I think Miles Lockhart's a slot corner, even though in the Knowles defense, they have kind of a safety that drops down and plays that. I'd rather see a true corner. I'd rather see cover guys out there, not safeties. They're safeties for a reason. So the Lockhart kid, I think, would really complement West, and Scott. And Ohio State gets all 3 of them, then you're done at the corner position, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. Again,
not to cut you off, but you add them to what they brought in last year with Simpson Hunt, Jermaine Matthews. Now you got some guys there that are Burke was a wide receiver when Ohio State recruited him. They shifted him over to corner. Cam Brown was a wide out in high school, kind of made him into a corner. Well, get guys that are corners. I think, when you bring in Bryce West and the Scott kid, now you're talking about guys that are closer to Lattimore, closer to Denzel Ward than what Brown and Burke are.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to throw his film up right now because you were just talking about Miles Lockhart. So this is his tape. He's down here. He's number one.
Going against the greatest competition in the world here, but yet you can still see who he is. Now he's short. I mean, he's really combative, and I love that in him. But I don't think he's an outside guy at the college level. I mean, he's a 5'9", 5'10" guy for sure. But he's not scared to hit people, and he definitely has cover skills. I wish this film would show him, and maybe he doesn't do it. I didn't see any punts or kickoff returns. He looks like he'd be amazing as a kickoff or a punt returner. But his film, I watched this whole film from start to finish, and it doesn't show any of that. So maybe that's not what he does. But, man, he just looks – when he gets his hands on the ball, he just looks like he'd be amazing as a punt returner.
I think this is Dylan Raiola. I think. I don't know. It looks like him. It was number one. I mean, this is out there. This is, I don't know if they're playing Chandler. I know he just transferred to Pinnacle, but they beat Dylan's team. I know that. So on the quarterback front, a lot of rumbles about Jaden Davis, Julian Sayin. I think Jaden Davis is a pure NIL kid, what I'm hearing, which is interesting. I don't think Julian is, which obviously that always helps Ohio State when he's not a pure NIL play. What are your thoughts? I know I ask you about every week about, but again, that 24 quarterback thing is something that with Raiola pulling the plug and then all of a sudden we have to reset with everybody. What are your thoughts about where we're at right now with recruiting that position?
It's Ryan Day, so they're going to get a good one. And I think they're in a great position, really. They haven't offered the Aaron Nolan kid yet. Now, did you see him last week?
He did not play. He was there. So, I got eyes on him, and he was playing catch with JJ, and he was throwing the ball about 1,000 miles an hour. But, from the guys I talked to, they thought he was okay, but maybe not a franchise guy.
Yeah, and I think Ohio State sees him that way, too, because they have not offered him yet. So, but he's waiting in the wings, and he'd love to have that offer. He was Jelani Thurman's quarterback. Okay, so, he's familiar with Ohio State. I think they're going to – if you put a gun to my head right now and said, who's the quarterback for Ohio State 2024, I'm going to say Julian Sayin, even though it sounds ridiculous when a kid is committed to Bama, like you're going to steal one from Nick Saban. And I say yes. I think they are going to steal him. I just think they're going to get him. The fly in the ointment here is Nick Saban hiring Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees had landed C.J. Carr to Notre Dame. Now, does C.J. value Notre Dame or does he value his relationship with Tommy Rees? Bama offered Aaron Nolan right on top of Julian Sayin. I don't know how Julian could have taken that. And Bama took 2 quarterbacks last year in that class. They got the Holstein kid. They got the Lonergan kid. So they're not going to take 2 again in this class. So if you do, you're just setting them up for the portal. So long story short, watch Alabama go ahead and offer C.J. Carr, and boy, will that shake things up. But even without that happening, I think Ohio State can get Julian Sayin, and get him to decommit from Bama, and I think they can pull him. If not, they'll get Aaron Nolan, who I think is a fine. He's better than a plan B guy, but, when you haven't offered him yet and you're keeping him warm, then he's plan B. So we'll see. There's a long way to go with this stuff. And again, if you look at the quarterbacks that Ryan Day and, that he's pulled at Ohio State, he got Fields in January. Haskins was in January. I don't know if he pulled him or Urban did, but C.J. Stroud in November. Devin Brown, November. The Kynol's kid was what? They got him in December, November. So don't panic. I guess the short answer there is don't panic on quarterbacks. Ryan Day will get one. Sometimes it might be a month before signing day, but he'll get one. So don't worry about quarterback.
Yeah, I can't ever worry about quarterback as long as I have Ryan Day, especially when I look at what we have coming with Brandon Ennis and JJ Smith, and it's like, why would you ever go anywhere else if you have the opportunity to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State? You get to throw to those guys. It makes your life just like heaven because you're throwing to three number one overall receivers, and you've got Brian Hartline calling the play. So we're going to throw the crap out of the ball next year. So why would you ever even consider going elsewhere when? Because again, I just look at infrastructure. Like if I'm a quarterback and I get to pick where I go, I want the best infrastructure possible. I want the best receivers, best O-line, best play caller, head coach that's an offensive guru. And that's why I don't, I care, but I don't care who we get in 24 because we might go out and get a superstar in the portal that supplants everybody, and then that's the way we go. Because nobody was sad when Justin Fields showed up. This is kind of how it is. Like, and again, it's big boy football, man, because Ryan, the thing about Ryan is he is always going to be looking to upgrade that position. It doesn't matter if he's got, like when CJ Stroud was a redshirt freshman coming back, he went after Malik Willis in the portal. And, that kid ended up being, a third round pick. A lot of people projected him to go in the first round. I think we went after Drake May this year. That scared off Dylan Raiola. And again, I don't care. Because, like, if you get Drake May, we're the number one team in the country preseason, and you've got Drake May throwing to Marvin and Emeka. And that's about as good as it could possibly get for our offense. So he's ultra aggressive. And again, I'm fine with it. That's big boy football. We did get a super chat. This is interesting. From inside the program bank, the Troy Smith and Justin Zwick battle. Were there politics involved or just a regular battle? Was this about when you were getting rolling in recruiting? Yeah. This is 04. What do you remember about that battle?
Well, what I remember specifically was Justin Zwick coming in was looked at as, you name it. Superstar.
Dylan Raiola.
Instant superstar. He was going to be the guy, maybe start as a freshman, that type of talk. And Troy was looked at as an athlete, kind of a running quarterback that was really raw. Didn't he play he was a punt returner, I think. I think he played some special teams as a returner.
Oh, he was a punt returner. They had him lining up at receiver in practice. I don't think he ever did that in a game, but yeah, they were trying to find a athlete role. I want to say his redshirt freshman year, he was a kick returner.
Could be. Yeah, I remember him returning punts. So the thing I remember most about this is legendary high school coach here, in Stark County, Tom McDaniels, father of Josh McDaniels, head coach of the Raiders, Tom told me when all that recruiting was going on, he said, Justin's good. He's not as good as what you all think he is. You all meaning guys that, do the rankings. And at the time it was like Ohio High magazine with the late, great Dwayne Long. And he said, I'm going to tell you something. Troy Smith, he described Troy Smith the way I described Cormani McClain. He's not ready now, but he's going to be something. And I'm like, well, isn't he more of like a runner? And he said, he's got a gun. He said he has an absolute gun. He just, he switched schools, Lakewood St. Edward running program to Glenville, and Glenville's offense would not be confused with, Chip Kelly or something. So he just said, give Troy time. Troy will be and Tom McDaniels told me Troy Smith will be the quarterback of this team eventually. He says it's not going to be for a while, though. He needs coached, and he's going to get coached. At the time, Tress was a head coach. Who was the quarterback coach? It wasn't Cisniano.
No, it was Joe Daniels, who got cancer and passed away.
Yeah, he got sick. And this is before I think Joe was sick. Tom McDaniel said, don't worry, Troy Smith will get coached, and Troy Smith will beat out Justin Zwick. And I remember thinking, Tom is brilliant and a genius, but I think, Tom, you've lost your mind on this one. But he was right. Tom McDaniels called that one. I never forgot that, because none of us thought Troy was anything more than just an athlete that you're trying to find a spot for. And I think Tom McDaniels was the closest one to seeing a future Heisman Trophy winner. So that's what I remember most about that battle.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember, we used to do this thing called the rehearsal scrimmage back in the day with Tress, where it would be the first team defense and offense versus the AYOs. And, the AYOs were me, Troy, and like all the guys that are backups basically. And this is a real scrimmage now. So, I mean, I'm going against Will Smith and Simon Frazier and Darian Scott and guys that I can't even touch because I was just literally 3 weeks on the job in training camp. I showed up in August. I'm blocking a bunch of guys that whooped the Miami Hurricanes. And, the thing is like with Troy's ability to run and improvise, we were able to move the ball against them because, they would get past the tackles inevitably or interior pressure. And Troy would just kind of freestyle and improvise, make plays. It wasn't, how you draw it up in the script or how you look at it in the playbook, but he could move the ball. And I was like, wow, this is amazing because like we stink. And we're going against probably the best defense in the country that's got 10 guys. The only guy they lost Dawson, Nicky, and C. Grant, but they had, Will Allen stepped in for Nicky. I mean, they were loaded. Chris Gamble, just a really fantastic defense. AJ Hawk was starting for C. Grant. So, I mean, you're going against probably on paper, the best defense in the country. And, and we were moving the ball. And that was something that Troy did. And like, that was something that I always remember. I was like, wow, like he's really good. Now, again, it's not, read over here, throw the ball. Because sometimes, like when you're behind a bunch of freshman offensive linemen against Will Smith and Darian Scott, like it's not going to always be as beautiful and clean as you'd like it to be. But yeah, Troy was a good leader. Again, I think that they both did well. I think that that 04 team, we stunk to start the year, and then we started subbing in guys. Like we subbed in Ted Ginn more, and we subbed in Gonzo more, and we subbed in Antonio Pittman more, and Troy became the starter. And then, I started, and then TJ started. And then so it was like, it was kind of like, people say, well, you got to win the job in spring ball or fall camp. And it was like that year we were so bad that it was like open auditions for half the spots on the team. Like, I mean, Doug Daddish, he started the first like 10 games and got benched for the Michigan game. And they put TJ in. So it was like the spots were never secure because we were just so bad, and then by the end of the year, we were actually playing pretty good ball, beat Michigan. We were 8-4, which at Ohio State, 8-4 usually gets people fired, and it should get people fired. But, we were able to kind of firm it up. And then in 05, we were pretty good. And again, the 05 team was probably the most underachieving team one of the most underachieving teams in Sequester because we lost to the Texas team that won the national title. We lost to probably the best Penn State team in 25 years. They won the Orange Bowl that year. But again, that was a really good team because we had a good offense and we had a great defense with AJ and Bobby and those guys. So that's a fantastic question. Bank, your thoughts on some of the stuff outside of Ohio State? Notre Dame has got a really interesting quandary right now. Tommy Rees takes off for Bama. And again, I can't blame him. I think he probably felt slighted when Marcus got promoted to head coach over him, who's an alumni. And, they're both coordinators, and you go with the guy that's only been here for a year. So I think that probably has something to do with him. And obviously, if you can go learn from Nick Saban, you always got to have to do that. But Marcus was hosting Utah's offensive coordinator. And Harry Hiestand, who I love to death, just resigned or retired. And as you know, coaches never retire. They always retire. But like Bruce Arians has retired like 5 times. Dean Pease has retired like 15 times. And out of the blue, he retires. And then it breaks that, Utah wanted to bring their offensive line coach. And then Notre Dame runs into the fact that for some reason they can't afford a $4 million buyout, which, with Notre Dame, that's like the money in between the seats of the private jet in my mind. But what do you make of that? Is Marcus, I don't say Marcus is in trouble, but you're losing your coordinator. You can't get Utah's coordinator. You're 3 weeks out from spring ball. If I was head coach, I know you can't panic like in public, but you got to get this offense installed and you got to get guys ready to coach and you got to get your line coach just quit too. So you don't have a line coach or a coordinator and you're about 3 weeks out from spring ball. Where are they at with what's going on?
I don't know. It's stunning to me. The Reese thing I didn't think was that big of a deal. I think it's a no-brainer for Tommy Reese to go work for Nick Saban. The guys that worked for Nick Saban become multimillionaires within a year or two. You go do a good job for Nick, Tommy Reese will be a head coach in 3 years. Okay, we're at Notre Dame. I don't know where he was going from Notre Dame. I know where he'll go from Bama. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. So that was a great move by Tommy Reese. Harry Houston, retiring in mid-February, like, makes no sense. If he was going to retire, you think he would have done it like 2 days after the bowl game and had already told Marcus that, a month prior. I don't know what to make of that. It doesn't make sense. And then the fact that they don't have the money to get the coaches they want, like, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good at all, for Marcus. Marcus needs consistency right now. He needs things to be solid, and you don't need this right now, a couple of weeks before spring ball. Urban Meyer wouldn't want this, what I mean? Let alone Marcus Freeman. He's a new coach. He needs stability, and there's a lot of instability right now. So I don't think it's good for Marcus at all. And I don't think he's, like you said, I don't think he's on a hot seat of being fired. But, if he loses 4 or 5 games this year, then this time next year, that seat will be warm. It'll be really warm. So, and he could get fired this year. If he goes 6-6, he could be in trouble. 7-5, 8-4, he probably survives. But then next year, that seat is hot. So this is not good. It's not good. And again, I didn't think the Tommy Rees thing was that big a deal. When Nick Saban comes calling, it's hard to tell him no. You know what I mean? Because it's really easy to go home and tell your wife, I know you like Notre Dame, but this guy can make us into multimillionaires within 3 years. Look what he did for Sark. Look what he's done for everyone, So no brainer for Tommy Rees. The Houston thing is a head scratcher. And if he ends up, coaching somewhere else here in 6 weeks, that's going to tell us that he just hated Notre Dame, or, maybe he wanted a raise and they told him no. How there's money problems at Notre Dame is beyond me. When Notre Dame can't get a coach from Utah because of a buyout, that does not make sense. Especially when the buyout's $4 million. It wasn't $40 million.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I love Marcus. Marcus is someone that I think so much of. I know him well. I want him to succeed. I want him to do great. And he doesn't need this. This is not what a young coach needs when you're basically learning on the job. Marcus wasn't a head coach at Kent State for 3 years and then moved on to Notre Dame. It wasn't the natural progression that these coaches take. That's a heck of a step for your first job. And Marcus is your age. You guys are
young
guys. It's a heck of a step, for your first job. So, and he didn't have a lot of coaching experience to go behind that. I mean, he's a young guy, and man, that's a heck of a first job.
Yeah, it's really tough, man, because you lose your offensive line coach, and they've got the best left tackle probably returning, and Joe Alt coming back, and they've got it's supposed to be the strength of their team, and a lot of that's because of Harry, the culture. Because I've been in a room, he was my coach when I was in the NFL, and so I know what Harry brings to the table. And I don't know if, like, with the offensive coordinator from Utah, one of the stipulations is he wanted to bring his own line coach in so that he'd have some continuity with what he liked to do, but that's sure what it seems like, because like the buyout, that $4 million buyout was for the offensive coordinator and Utah's offensive line coach. I don't know if he thought Harry was going to go coach tight ends or what he thought, but now it's like you overplay that thing, and all of a sudden you don't have a line coach or a coordinator, and you're kind of at square one. And I'll tell you what, if I'm, a coach, like, I mean, you're mortified if you don't have a line coach right now, because these guys, they're doing their winter workouts right now. That position group is supposed to be a strength, and then all of a sudden the leader steps away for whatever reason. He says retirement, but I can't buy that a guy just retires like that suddenly, and then the next day it breaks that the O-line coach wanted to come to Notre Dame, and then I think if Urban was the head coach, there's no way that $4 million buyout doesn't get paid and he doesn't get the guy that he wants, because that's a pittance.
It sounds like they went to Houston and told them, hey, we're getting the Utah guys, the O coordinator, and he's bringing his O-line coach. So, we're going to move you up into the office or something. Or, and like you say, they overplayed their hand maybe, and Houston is like, forget it. I quit. Oh, you don't have an O-line coach now? Sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they told him that, like you said, we're going to move you to tight end coach. He ain't taking that. and he's not moving upstairs to be a quality control guy either.
No.
So they may have thought they had both those guys coming from Utah and went to Houston and said, "Look, this is the deal. We got another O-line coach coming." Okay, fine.
Whew. Yeah, it's a bad deal. I feel for Marcus, but I don't feel for Marcus because it makes it easier for Ohio State to go out there if they still have they're starting spring ball in a couple of weeks, man, and they don't have a coordinator. They don't even have an offense they're going to be running. So, real interesting stuff. Well, Bank, we're going to wrap this thing. Last thing that we got from the SFE guys, Brandon Ennis has an outside shot of getting a waiver. I really doubt it's going to happen. What's up?
I did not know that. So you
I
found
mean,
that out last week?
yeah, they're working hard at Ohio State to try to figure out a way to get him up here and get him involved. Now, again, this is like a 0.001% chance, but there is where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're trying to get the number one receiver in the country to be able to do stuff at spring, they're trying. They're trying to work with Heritage, and they're trying to work with that. What would that mean? I mean, because I think Brandon, they want him to be a punt returner. They want him to be a Mecca's backup in the slot. What would it mean if he got up here for spring ball?
Yeah, that would be interesting because, I think you get better at football by playing football. So I wish he was there today, so I think he's going to be a little bit behind. Can he come in and beat out Julian Fleming for the number 3 spot? I don't think so. And then you've got Xavier Johnson, who I sure don't look at as a walk-on anymore. I don't know how you look at X, but he's a player. So I don't think it's that big a deal for Brandon. I don't think Brandon factors into next year's, I don't think he starts. He's not beating out Julian Fleming. So we'll see. I just wish he was there. It makes him a better football player down the road. But the one that'll be interesting is when Emeka leaves next year, Marvin leaves next year, Fleming's gone for next year. J.J. Smith may be the number 1 guy as a true freshman. I can only think what J.J. is going to be, in another year or another year and a half. What will he be then over what he is now? So, yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal for Brandon. I'd like to see him there just to make him a better football player going forward, but I don't think he factors into like a prominent role next year. I wouldn't see that at all, but he's a heck of a player, so we'll see. And he is physically developed. So it's not, some of these guys that come in that need to gain 15 pounds of muscle to be able to compete, it's a lot tougher. Brandon has a college-ready body right now. So we'll see. I'd love to see him get in here. So if they can make it happen, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, again, it's a very, very small chance of it happening, but they're trying because, again, you're building towards the next year because, again, you're going to drain that room of 3 guys that Brian Hartline thinks he's got 3 first-rounders in there, and that includes Julian Fleming. So Julian takes a big step. I mean, he could sneak into the first round with Emeka and Marvin, but, you're really just building that for that next year because then you're going to look around and say, oh, God, we got to replace a monumental amount of production. And we got to have, JJ get here early, and we got to have Brandon ready to go, and you got to have Tate and the Rogers brothers. And if we get, we got to get something out of the 2022 class too, because I don't even know if any of them saw the field last year for more than a couple of plays.
No, none of them had more snaps than Reese Stocksdale. And if you haven't heard of Reese Stocksdale, don't feel bad. He's a walk-on. And not to denigrate him, this is to, prop him up that he was able to beat those guys out and get more reps than they got. So, God bless him,
Yeah,
so
but
it doesn't look good for when you're a true freshman, we should know you're there. We knew Emeka was there as a true freshman, and he was behind, Olave, Wilson, all that group. We knew Emeka was there, and we knew Marvin was there after the Rose Bowl. We're nothing of those guys. And I think next year we're going to know Tate's on the roster. We're going to know Brandon Ennis is on the roster. Maybe both of those Rogers guys. I don't know. I think the 2022 guys, you either get better or you get passed. I mean, it's big boy ball. It's Ohio State. And best guys are going to play. So you better get good or,
get going.
Look into that portal. I mean, because they can't wait on you.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the iron sharpens iron. There's nothing that's a better example of that than Brian Hartline's room, because it is like Marvin didn't even play his freshman year until the two kids opted out of the bowl game, and then all of a sudden he 3 touchdowns, and that's how good he was. And he had like a handful of catches going into that game, and he had one of the greatest, probably the second greatest Rose Bowl performance ever for a receiver behind Jackson Smith and Jigbas. And Emeka was out there the whole time, and those guys were just spot players until Garrett Wilson and Olave decided to opt out of the game. So, this is it.
We had heard so much about them in practice.
Sure.
We knew they were good. Like, nobody was worried about, like, oh my God, we got to put these freshmen in there. Don't worry. Nothing to worry about those. But we didn't feel that way this year. You know what I mean?
It's interesting.
You didn't hear one of those guys. I never heard one. I didn't know they were there. They were like being coached by Parker Fleming or something. We didn't know any of them were around. They could have all left and we wouldn't have known.
Yeah, that was
Marvin was there. We had heard so much about Marvin Harrison, and when he did get in there, it was like, holy crap, look at this guy. And Emeka had punt returns and kickoff returns. We knew he was going to be special. We knew he was special. But this current crop of freshman wide receivers we didn't see anything out of any of them.
Yeah, and just being honest, that is concerning, because again, I hear all kinds of names. I get tips from people that are at practice that you should see this guy, watch out for this guy. This guy's flashing, this guy's really coming. And then, I didn't hear a word about a single receiver. So, I mean, and I hear about everybody. I mean, I hear about backup linemen. I hear about third running backs. I hear about, backup tight ends. So not hear anything about these receivers. And this will be a really interesting spring. And something that's exciting about the spring is that
they have a chance. Now, this is their chance. They have to make a leap now, tonight, yesterday, tomorrow.
Yeah.
You better show something.
Yeah, because Emeka is out for all of spring. Julian is out for all of spring. And Marvin Harrison won't do anything other than show up. He's going to show up and watch practice, and that's about all you need him to do. So these guys are going to be getting their reps. They're going to be getting a lot of turns. So it'll be a really good evaluation. So any final thoughts, Bank? Great show. Appreciate you, my man.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to spring like you are, and I guess the wide receivers and the quarterbacks are, they're always so high on our list, that we can't wait to see, because there's uncertainty there in the backups at the wideouts. Definitely uncertainty at the quarterback spot, and then we didn't even touch on the O-line, where there's a ton of uncertainty there. So this sometimes in spring it's just like a formality, and there's really nothing to look forward. This year there's a lot to look forward to. This spring, really a lot you can learn and a lot you can glean from, the daily practice reports and stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's like a open for business, hiring session. It's like a job fair basically. So this isn't like that 15 team that had 20 starters back and guys just kind of go through the motions. This is like, hey, who wants to go win a job and be the starter week 1 when we open up the season? So I agree with you. Like, not all springs are created equal. When there's a quarterback derby, always more exciting. So it's going to be interesting. So, well, Bank, I appreciate you, my man. I'm going to wrap this thing up. And as always, we thank you guys. We get Bank out of here. We are growing like crazy on BuckeyeScoop.com. If you guys enjoy this content, join our message board. I'm telling you, we do this literally all day, every day. This is just a little taste of what we do. We love interacting with you guys. It is nonstop on our board. Absolutely excellent environment, very pleasant, great people. Talking football basically all day, every day. So it makes it really fun to be a part of. Love for you to join BuckeyeScoop.com. I think you guys would enjoy it. I mean, when people get on it, man, they can't wait to get the updates. They can't wait to see what the real tea is inside the Woody Hayes, what's going on with recruiting, what's going on with South Florida kids, the quarterback derby, quarterback recruiting. I mean, we just have so much information flowing right now. It really is a blast. So we'd love to have you guys. Again, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. The likes are huge. Please leave us you can subscribe to the channel. Again, that always helps us a ton. If you enjoy these live shows, I advise click on the bell. You get a little alert that says when we go live, so you guys will never miss a live show. We love doing these live shows. We love interacting with you guys. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. You You guys have a lot of options, and we appreciate you spending time with us. If you guys are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other podcast network, please leave us a 5-star review. Those are huge for us. Appreciate you guys. Our podcasts have been growing like crazy. It's all because of you. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the fantastic questions and following along with us. And as always, thank you, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. We are going to have this again tomorrow night. I'll probably be breaking down some film, potentially from the Georgia game. So I'd love for you guys to tune in for that. So thank you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.